What an unforgettable weekend of college football. Week 6 will go down as one of the best weekends of college football so far. So many upsets, so many shocking losses. We know which one was the biggest one, but I gotta start with the first one because they played on Friday night, and that's a very great game. Syracuse UNLV. I said to myself, and also I did a short video on YouTube about can Syracuse beat UNLV and their first loss. And sure enough, they did. They won 44 to 41. And Syracuse, they spoiled UNLV's week. Days before the game, they got ranked for the first time in their program history. And then this happened. They crashed the party. Kyle McCord, a former Ohio State Buckeye, transferred to Syracuse. He threw for 355 yards with 3 touchdowns. Impressive job. He was impressive. But the player that that was the X factor that, in my opinion, aside from Kamakor, this deserves the game ball. LaQuinn Allen, pain all night long with his left leg, and he refused to come out of the game. He showed toughness, and he scored the touchdown in overtime. What do you think, Avery?
I agree with you. The game Friday night, absolutely stellar, especially, it's a West Coast game. So I believe it started, I think maybe like 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And when it ended, I think it was close to 2:30. And believe it or not, I was just getting home from work. And I think the game went into overtime at that point. And the best thing I can say, both teams absolutely played their hearts out. But I got to give it to Syracuse. They just kept UNLV on their heels the entire night. They scored first. They took advantage of all the opportunities. They just kept UNLV on their heels. And you're absolutely correct. UNLV getting ranked, and then Syracuse just kind of spoiling, the good news. But you're right. Syracuse needs to be really proud of themselves for this game, especially this is a road win. Playing on the road for college teams. I mean, it's sometimes rough, but can be very, very rewarding.
Indeed. And I'm sorry I have to bring this one. Vanderbilt upsetting the number one Alabama Crimson Tide. None of us saw it coming. They won 40 to 35. It's the Commodores' first win against a top five team in 61 tries. Vanderbilt hasn't beaten Alabama since September of 1984. It's been 40 years. The streak is over. The drought is over.
Uh,
Vanderbilt, this is probably their biggest win of the season,
oh,
arguably. Their
Absolutely.
biggest win
And
ever.
and here's the thing, even as an Alabama fan, I got to give it to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a school with a very rich history. Their college basketball team, men's and women's, very excellent. Their football team, kind of under the radar for a good number of years. I I can't fault this any way, shape, or form. I mentioned it last week when Alabama played Georgia. Alabama needs to play 4 quarters. They weren't playing 4 quarters. They were not playing a complete game. And you're absolutely correct. I believe I think Thursday or Friday night, Alabama was projected. I think they had like a 97% chance projection from ESPN, and I think they were about a 30-point favorite, just about. But I've said this repeatedly. Do not go into schools just because they're unranked or the school doesn't have the best program in the few years and take them lightly. This is what happens. Alabama was barely number one for 6 days. if you are a ranked team right now, you need to be careful. And right now, as far as rankings, if you look at the rankings now, it's a hodgepodge of everybody, so it's you have to take these scenes seriously. You have to. We saw it with Northern Illinois and Notre Dame. We have seen it recently with other teams, and now we've seen it with Vanderbilt. And here's the thing, we're barely halfway through. I don't think this is going to be any different. I think we're still going to see it. I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we are still going to see some shocking upsets because on Saturday we had 7, including a number 1. So we've said it before, Miguel. College football is great, especially when it comes to upsets. But man, it's about to get crazy, and we're in October now. October is a lot of conference games, a lot of these, you know, older school rivalries. Like this weekend, we got the Red River rivalry coming up, and both Texas and Oklahoma are ranked. So you gotta be really, really prepared, whether you're playing at home, whether you're going on the road, if you are ranked, because now every school wants to be a spoiler for your good party.
And Arkansas definitely was a party pooper for Tennessee. They upset Tennessee 19-14. They scored 16 unanswered points on the Volunteers. And like he said, Singleton, he rushed for an 11-yard touchdown to put the Razorbacks ahead late in the fourth quarter. Um, Following them, it's not the same because, a lot of changes have been made between Michigan and Washington. Both teams played. So I don't call Washington win a revenge victory because, like, again, a lot of changes have been made from last year's national title. But the Huskies won 27-17, and they scored 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Minnesota Golden Gophers, they beat USC 24-17. Um, Pittsburgh, Penn State, and Indiana, they remain unbeaten. What are your thoughts about Pittsburgh particularly? They beat North Carolina, which is the third
Oh,
string Missouri.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think Pittsburgh and Indiana right now are probably the two surprises. And I know we're gonna talk about like Navy and Army as well, but I think that as far as like ranked, being ranked, Indiana and Pittsburgh are really great surprises. They've been playing very consistent football. And when you play consistent football, it's just you chip away at every team ahead of you. And now for like Indiana and Pitt, all these upsets are doing their programs a good job because all they have to do is do the job. And I've said that before. As long as you play 4 quarters, as long as you come prepared, everything else, when teams want to play spoiler, if you are consistently putting in the hard work, you know, not making mistakes, the team is coming together, the team is winning the game, then don't be surprised to see Pitt and Indiana probably crack top 15 if they still keep a consistent play of football. I know in the next couple of weeks they're again going into these conference games, and these rivalry games are going to be a bit tough, but they're playing very consistent, and I like that. Also, Syracuse too. So, don't be surprised, Syracuse, they win another game, pop into the top 25 as well.
Other teams that were undefeated, but they suffered their first loss. Duke, James Madison, Rutgers, and Missouri. And then I'm gonna close it with this because again, salute to the servicemen. Army and Navy, they're both 5-0 now. Again, both of them for the first time, 5-0 in the same season since 1945. We salute them. And when we will talk about previews, I'm gonna choose Army. I don't care who they play this upcoming weekend. If I gotta see if they're having a bye week or not. But
Um,
regardless,
no, they are playing this weekend.
okay. So Thursday, I'm gonna see who they're gonna play, but I'm gonna talk about Army. They deserve it. Um, we did Navy last week.
Yeah.
Army's gonna be this week. I like giving props to teams that don't get too much attention. So they deserve it. I'm happy for them. Again, salute to a serviceman.
Uh, you're absolutely correct. Navy putting up 34 points against Air Force, and Army they put up 49, I believe, against Tulsa. And like we said in our preview, I know sometimes service schools get overlooked, but you're talking about men and women that are going to be serving our country. And for those that play collegiate sports at service schools, it's a different, breed of animal, if you will. And I absolutely enjoy seeing them uh, get on the field. I love seeing their classmates support them, especially in terms of travel if available to them. So it's great to see Army and Navy play really great football. I hope this still continues once they play their game at the end of the season. And even that could be very interesting, going into possible rankings, maybe bowl games, dare I say playoff, which may be a bit, you know, um, high on the list. But I think it's really poignant that for college football, we also give the spotlight to our service schools. Absolutely.
And I'm gonna make it a habit, a consistent habit year by year to watch Army versus Navy. But this year, we're talking about one of the most exciting college football seasons ever. With the playoff format now stretching to 12 teams, all these schools, transferring one conference to another. Look what Indiana is doing, Pittsburgh, Army and Navy, the list goes on and on. So if you're gonna have two great teams so far in Army and Navy clash one another at the end of the season, I hope they continue the hot streak because I want to see that happen.
I completely agree with you. Even, just as we're talking, 7 upsets. If you are a fan of Missouri and Michigan, you need to be downhearted because both teams dropped 12 and 14 spots, respectively. So you're absolutely correct. Even though you have, and me, I'm still kind of weirded out by the transfer portal. But especially with schools changing conferences, like you say, and the expanded playoff format, you're talking about schools that maybe last year you were just talking about how they are going to work into the new conference as well as the potential playoff format. And now, just in a month and a half, we have seen some really great games, from teams that are under the radar, from teams that are putting themselves on the radar, great coaching, great players, great team efforts. These are the things that we've talked about many, many times, Miguel, that are the cornerstone of college football. So seeing a Pitt, a Syracuse, Indiana, seeing, Northern Illinois, they won this weekend. Seeing them still kind of break through and see what's going on. James Madison, Army and Navy, getting in the mix. Even Colorado for Coach Sanders coming in and starting off well, but not ending very well. But now having this really great, go as well. Other schools like Nebraska, Coach Matt Rule, not a lot of fanfare when he went to the school. School's doing really well. Also seeing these other rivalries and how it's just so exciting. That first game of the season, Texas and Michigan, I was hoping for, something really clashing there, and Texas just blowing Michigan out of the water. Now, come this weekend, Red River rivalry, how is that gonna, be for these two schools, knowing now Texas is number one? Also, we kind of missed it, but Miami, survived an upset coming back from Cal, even though Cal also went to a different conference. And I'll go ahead and say this. Now, Miami is in a bit of like a hiatus right now. Okay, they're going to have a bye week, but they jumped up 2 spots. And usually, when schools have a bye week, that can kind of cause some issues in their ranking. However, this weekend, like you say, if you want to put your team on a map, upset a school. So any upsets that happen this weekend could help Miami, because I'll tell you one thing, Cam Ward, he helped his Heisman odds by pulling off what he did. He had help, and granted, it was a team effort, but whatever happened last week with Virginia Tech, he turned it around. And granted, it wasn't a pretty win for Miami, but it just worked. And overall, that's college football. You know, you're you got the highs, you got the lows, you got the excitement, and it's absolutely great to see every single week.